Today we have two presenters, Daniel from eSUB and Maria from Silo, and I'll go ahead and pass it over to them so they can formally introduce themselves. Daniel?
Sure. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daniel. I'm very looking forward to speaking with all of you today. A little bit about myself. So I was in the construction industry after I graduated from engineering school for about 10, 15 years, mostly in that heavy civil industry. However, about those 10 years of quite a bit of field work, project management, project engineering, all of the roles out in the field, I started to get really good in developing a knack for those workflows. So about 3 years ago, I actually joined eSUB and really helping a lot of our clients, any of our subcontractors, um, trade contractors that we have out there, really develop a knack and develop their workflows and joining the 21st century with eSUB and getting them on board as well.
Hi, I'm Maria. I spent 15 years in construction and talent acquisition, and having worked with some of the larger contractors and sub trades out there, I just got extremely frustrated with how we, focus our employees and how technology is not actually helping us, but harming in how we attract, engage, retain, and promote our talent internally. So we're building a product that is completely changing the entire game landscape of how we are managing our talent. How do we find out who do we have internally? And then more importantly, how do we go to market to find the right individuals, all by using the systems that we currently have in place to build a better platform.
All right. So to get started, I mean, really, the introduction is this is an issue that we are all well aware of, especially if you're overseeing many different crews out in the project, whether you sit in the office, whether you're that superintendent, whether you're that foreman, it's going to be overwhelming in construction. Adopting, rolling out any software, whether it's your project management software, whether it's maybe accounting software for anyone in the office, it's going to be overwhelming. It is a very large task. I mean, especially just that setup. So that is why there is definitely a huge delay among a lot of subcontractors to actually adopt any of technology, whether it's on the phone, on the web, on an iPad, because it feels too complex. Everyone's just used to doing the things and the ways, and especially for those smaller subcontractors, those trade contractors, family businesses. I'm just going to do it the way dad did it. I'm just going to do it the way mom did it. And, they're not really cashing in on all of the potential benefits to all of the different technologies that are available out there for you. So really kind of get into that problem where a lot of companies start to avoid it altogether, or they maybe just truncate their technology stack down to the absolute minimum, or they will then also then kind of implement solutions that really don't fit. So I think like a really good example with that is, I mean, what we have on screen here. I mean, you're a subcontractor, called plumbing, MEP. Um, Maybe you're in the concrete business. So let's just say you had about 30 different employees. And at that point, you're probably struggling a little bit with just with the workforce tracking. I mean, you may be at a point where, half some of the people, depending on where you are in the country, you might have known some of these people for 15 years. They might have worked there for you, but, things are really starting to ramp up. You got a lot of projects, you're bidding a lot of work, things are getting more competitive. You need to start hiring a lot more people. So you start on a hiring spree. I'm just going to say a hiring spree, and you get up to 50 workers. This is when you really start to notice that your inefficiencies and that technology, that delay in adopting that technology isn't really working for you anymore. Your inefficiencies are exploding. You're spending way too much time on processes that aren't working for you anymore. You're still on pen and paper. And really, after those 50 employees, or it's really going to start increasing exponentially. I mean, what do you think about that, Maria? Is that kind of something that you've seen in a lot of companies that you've been working with as well?
For sure. I think a lot of it is overwhelming because there's also a lot of really big softwares out there, right? So I think when we're a smaller contractor or a smaller outfit, we think, oh no, we can't, get this big software that costs so much money. Like we don't need it. We'll only use 10% of it. And I think we get lost in, the technology world where there's so many different offerings, right? And I think if we stop for a minute and think about what are we trying to solve, right? Like what do we need to accomplish here? Like what are the foundational things that are going to help our business grow? And, we talk about workforce tracking, and a lot of things that I hear is, well, I know everybody that's on my crew. Okay, but what if you're sick, right? Or like, what if there's an issue where, you have the opportunity to give your foreman the opportunity to call another crew and say like, hey, do you have somebody that can help us out today, right? So it's really all about like when you start small, not only that allows you to scale with the software that you're purchasing, but it also starts to implement slowly the whole culture of technology is our friend. It's not here to, give us more work or to create more work. And it also allows you as you grow to actually adapt either your technologies or your processes for a better way.
That's actually a really good point. I think we're going to get a little bit more into that as well too. But I mean, I see that with a lot of clients that I onboard as well too. It's, they want to conquer the whole world. I mean, especially in eSUB. I mean, we say start small, start growing into it. Start with some field notes, start with a daily report. Those things that can easily be done without a lot of company setup, where you have to maybe get your accountants involved for cost codes, where you might have to start entering your budgets for your projects. Hey,
Mhm.
just enter a field note, enter a daily report, see how easy this is, and then work your way up from that. So, I mean, really at the beginning, that's when it gets the most overwhelming. So, start small and then also focus on the visibility. Probably just getting buy in from all of the team members, whether they're crew leads, whether they're foremen, whether they're superintendents. They all have a mind of their own, too. Involve them in the decision making process as well, too. I think that's going to be pretty important.
Yeah, exactly. And just, what we're doing with Silo In, like even if you have 30 employees, right? Like we map your employee skills, experiences, what projects they're on. But at the same time, one of the new things that we're currently building right now is that you can actually have candidates that are applying be compared to your current employees. So that speeds up your hiring process. So now you spend not spending hours trying to find the right individual. You're kind of just finding lookalikes. So there's a different way to also look at that.
Yeah, and I mean, like what we could see here, if we just solve
Mhm.
one problem at a time, especially, it's you don't have to conquer the whole world at once. I mean, a lot of people have tried and they failed miserably, right? So, using the simple tools, I mean, especially with eSUB, just project documentation and timesheets, reducing the admin burden, have everyone in the company or have everyone, all of your workforce really help you reduce the burden that you might have in the back office. Same thing with Silo In,
Yeah.
assigning the right people to the right jobs.
For sure. Or even just knowing who you have, right? Like sometimes we can move people around, but we don't actually know their skill sets or if we don't know if they fit that particular job. And I think, it's find out what's your biggest struggle. What is eating the most amount of your time that can be used on something else, right? Because I think we as smaller companies, we tend to hold on to a lot of administrative tasks that can be automated and free up our
Mhm.
time to do more business development or, to go and get more business as well as be more on site and be present with your teams. So I think it's really just ask the question, what is eating my time and what do I not like doing that I would be happy to delegate, for example, and see if there's a software there that can help you solve that.
Right. And it doesn't have to be a very, like we mentioned before, it doesn't have to be that very like complex software or
Yeah.
complex solution. I mean, it's just improving that communication. So whether you're entering a daily report, whether you're entering a field note,
Mhm.
whether you're jumping on Silo In, seeing who's available for a project that I've really got to get done here the next week. That's really going to be important. And if there's something that doesn't work out, I want to say in a software, there's other workflows, there's other alternative. Get some help too. There's
Mhm.
custom solutions out there as well too, but it's just taking that first step, starting small, realizing kind of I want to say, taking scalability into account as well too. I mean, you went from 30 employees to 50 employees. At 50 employees, you noticed you had the issue. It's, whoa, this is really inefficient.
Mhm.
At least you already, I want to say, you already knew about well, not knew about the issue, but you'd already kind of, ooh, what's the word? You've already
I
addressed you've already
yeah,
addressed the issue. Not addressed the issue, but you found the issue and then now you're looking to address it, but you got to
identified
keep
it.
identify it. Wow. What a word.
I know. And, I think when we buy software, like, smaller size companies, I think we feel like we also get left behind a little bit, right? Because we're worried to reach out to the company itself and be like, hey, how can I make this better? How can I make this work for us, right? So I think it's really important to pick a partner or software you can work with that understands that, you may not be, a 500 employee kind of company, so you still matter, right? I think that's really also important when you're assessing the partners that you're partnering with for your software solutions.
Oh, I definitely see that just with some of the clients that I help. I mean, we have our strategic consultant team. We have a lot of our eSUB Academy videos that we go as well too, where it's like learning as a process. I mean, we're there to help for the implementation, and that's going to be important. Some companies do it a lot better than other companies, but we know that this is a very big burden on some of our contractors, and we just want to make sure we want to make it as easy as possible, help out with as much as we can, and with our experience as well. We've been through it before, so we want to be there to help you get to where you want to be by the time you get to those 15, by the time you get to those 100 employees.
Yeah, no, for sure. We actually we've noticed that because we're really changing how you think about talent attraction and retention, we end up working with our clients. So we'll send in somebody that's going to work with you for a couple of weeks to make sure it all lines up and works the way that you want it to work and customized to what you're looking to accomplish in your business and the type of people you're looking to attract. And that works really well. We find that, it really makes a difference versus kind of like just throwing something at someone and be like, well, there you go, you bought it, right? So I think it's, like we said, start small, one problem at a time, and find the right partner.
Yeah, it's definitely not like when we probably learned how to swim. Some parents just kind of threw us in the water and, hey, you'll figure it out kind of thing, just a
Yeah.
push. But
Yeah, exactly.
let's see, key to growth. I want to say, so now we get to about those 50 employees. We've got a system that we think works for us, or software that works for us, both maybe project management and workforce management as well too. So I want to say, like, some of the common things that I see is, we mentioned a couple slides before, is when you don't have visibility, some of the issues that really come out of that. You don't have visibility. The field and the office are disconnected. You might have various departments that are probably disconnected within your company as well too. So that kind of starts to get you into those issues where, hey, the project manager can't really find the right skilled workers for a project on a particular scope, right? We all know what it's like to apply for a position, apply for a job. We might not be hearing from an HR manager for a while, and all of a sudden, you're in a new role. HR manager got to you very quickly, and you're hearing from this other manager or this other position that you applied maybe like 4 months ago. So we kind of get into that second issue, that hiring sometimes takes too long, and it creates a lot of unnecessary costs and overhead. I mean, although you're trying to hire someone in, there's going to be that cost that's related to that. And then just that misalignment with field and the office as well too. That's going to cause a lot of downtime. It's going to cause lost hours, and it's really just going to call, we have a concept called scope creep. I mean, that scope is it's going to start creeping up. You're going to lose the schedule. You're going to keep trying to do more and more and more. So really, we kind of get into that issue where it's like, we got to make sure that you have visibility into your project management and into your flows on all levels of that particular company.
Sure. And I think, when we think about companies, when we start small, right? You have that real camaraderie, you have like that whole team environment, everybody knows everybody. You have a really good culture and you have a really good experience at work, right? And I think as we grow, we lose sight of other people that may work in the company, right? So
Mhm.
what it actually ends up doing is at that stage when you get to 50 or 75, it actually starts creating those silos that we're all trying so hardly now to break down and, start talking about like, how do we build a better company culture and so forth, right? But I think when you have visibility, as operations to your workers and who they are, you can accomplish two things. First of all, you can obviously know all the different skill sets. You can, meet your project scopes. You can submit good bids. Like I work for a company where we lost that $300 million mining opportunity because we couldn't find people that were right under our nose. Like that sucked. Like that was
They're out
awful,
there,
right?
yeah.
Right. So, and they were in our company, like they were internal. We just couldn't find them fast enough. So I think it allows you for that. It also allows you to start promoting people internally because you know who's who, right? And you have that whole visibility and like internal pipelines, succession planning. But I think more importantly, what it does for your workforce, it actually allows them to connect with one another because not only you have visibility to who they are, but they have visibility to one another. So now I feel comfortable to pick up the phone. Maybe I need to have like, I don't know, just as an example, maybe I have something that needs to be reimbursed. I can look it up. I can like type it into a search bar and be like AP, and then it can give me the person that I'm looking for, right? Or I can be like, hey, who has a certification for confined spaces? Type that in and call them and ask them a question. So what you're doing is you're creating a culture of visibility internally, and you're taking that team environment that crews cultivate, and you're spreading it across the entire organization. And it's
And
never
I really like that too. I mean, kind of like we say here too. It's almost like a LinkedIn. It's right there. It's under your nose. It's something that we can quickly and easily find for that visibility. So you got the worker profiles of certs, you know, and we all know that there are tons of certifications out there for every aspect of construction that we've got to have. And a lot of times people hire on, and you know, depending on where you are in the country and like what kind of work you're doing, you might be hiring on as a foreman or superintendent to multiple different companies over 1 year. But every time that first day, you're bringing your binder in of all of your certifications that they can have that. So you're saying like for that workforce management, Silo In can essentially have it right there for you then, right?
exactly. And I'll tell you one horror story. Well, it's not a horror story, but it's like confessions of like a ex headhunter. But I used to love watching companies hire somebody from their competitor into their company because let's say they hired
Oh,
a
that's always
project.
fun.
So let's say, you know, they hired company X hired from company Y, they hired a PM, right, from their competitor. So what does it give me as a headhunter? I now know that every project coordinator in that organization may have been potentially overlooked. So what do? I call every single project coordinator in that organization and say, "Hey, what happened there? How come they hired externally?" Right? So when people don't feel that they have visibility in the organization outside of their immediate manager, they'll feel overlooked if you're promoting, right? And they'll start looking for
Hmm.
opportunities elsewhere. And like really with the shortages we have, we can't really afford that because it's not just the cost of hiring somebody new, it's also you're losing all that knowledge, right?
Right.
So it's absolutely critical at any stage. And the earlier you can foster it, the better it turns out for company cultures.
And yeah, that's a good point. And that there's that visibility. So during the hiring stage, visibility is key. And even during, I want to say, the construction
Yeah.
portion of the project, when you have boots on the ground, I mean, that's when communication is going to be pretty important too. So, you know, although all of your field teams might not be directly involved, they're going to be indirectly involved, of course, with that workforce management. However, but your project teams are going to be really wanting to get transparent into all of the projects. Hey, what is Bob doing on the project down on Mill Stream? What is Bill doing over here on the other side of town? I mean, you have that project management software that's going to keep everyone in line with the costs, with the documentation, with the RFIs, with the submittals. So really fostering that communication to where we say, hey, we want to be visible, but it's also critical now that we have boots on the ground that we communicate and we have an effective way of communicating. Ooh, this is a good one. I'm gonna have you take this one, Maria, because I really like this when we
Good.
talked about it the other day, actually. And it's a
Yeah.
good point.
I do have to give credit to Gabe Guetta from Salas. He talked about it different we when we chat at a different conference. And really, you know, we talk about the field and the office, right? And how do we improve that communication? And it really comes down to, you know, as an office person, if you've never been to site, you have a completely different idea of what it is, right? Like I fortunately went to every single site. I went to like a hydro dam, like, you know, it was amazing, right? But like you truly get to appreciate it, right? And you truly get to build relationships. And the same thing with the field. Like they're like, oh, you know, they're sitting in their tower and nobody talks to us,
Hmm.
da 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 da, right? So and there is no bridge. There's like nothing that bridges them together. So they are really like it's like a high school dance, right? They're kind of standing there, you're peering, you're like, I should go have a conversation, but I don't know. Like, am I cool enough? Like, so you know, it's just it's really awkward, right? And I think it all goes down to it breaks down the communication. Because first of all, you don't know who to talk to. And second of all, you may not be comfortable asking that question. So now you're going to somebody else to ask another question, to ask another question, and then you're just getting all these crazy delays that can be solved very easily, right? So,
You're missing the social cues in that dance. It's like,
yeah.
oh, I should have went over and talked to them. I mean, I've seen it plenty of times. I mean, more on my side of things, where as a project engineer, as an engineer, you had office engineers that, hey, just because their title says office engineers, they're just sitting in the office and they're helping the project, you know, processing change orders, submittals, making sure the project has what it needs. However, they'll step 1 foot out in the field and have no idea kind of what's going on. They can't really like visualize it kind of thing. Yeah, just the social cues. It's just funny now thinking back on my past as well too. And I mean, even sometimes too, I mean, you have maybe a foreman or superintendent other than that weekly staff meeting they might have to come into the office. They'll come in to maybe make a photocopy, drop off some receipts in the office maybe once a week, and they just feel really out of place as well too.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of uninforming. The communication is really key there. I mean, for example, here, you might have some last minute schedule changes, or you forget to apply to a critical RFI, or even your internal project staff forgot to let someone in the field know that there was a critical RFI that got answered. I mean, that could delay you, and it can continue to delay you exponentially, of course,
Mhm.
causing those lost hours and that downtime.
Yeah. So
So,
sorry, go ahead.
oh, go ahead. No, no,
No, I was gonna
no.
say, so I think if there's a way to take technology and help with those social cues and help improve the communication from the field to the office to start cultivating those relationships, I think it's extremely critical, right? Because if they never had to talk, I feel like they never would.
Hmm. Instant updates, communication. I mean, job site progress, knowing what's going on across the company.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that's pretty important as well too. So managing a workforce just like a championship sports team. So I'm sure we've all been involved in a myriad of different sports teams. I mean, we probably play fantasy football. We've got March Madness coming up. We've got the brackets and things coming up. And everyone probably knows that one or two person that could rattle off every stat of every single player out there as well too. So I really like this analogy that you brought up here, Maria, is that really tracking every team player's strengths and stats. You probably know all that information of your favorite teams and your favorite players, but why don't we do it as a construction team, like even internally or externally? Why do you think
Yeah.
that is?
I think we could just get really comfortable in our teams, in our environment, like our bubbles and our silos. And I think there isn't really a way to properly do it right now. I think a lot of companies, go out there and they'll build databases, whether it's, internal to your crew and to your team or to your organization, but we have no way to automatically update those profiles, right? So a lot of these things go stagnant. So, the stat that you may have had last year has changed, but how do we figure that out, right? So I think I think a lot of companies may want to manage a workforce like a sports team, but there's a challenge with it. So one of the things that we do, we actually tie into project schedules and daily logs to get updates to your profile. So your team stats are constantly updating, right?
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, and I think the other biggest thing is that we there isn't actually a platform out there that allows you to manage your company like a sports team, right? The idea originally came to me from watching, doing baseball cards, and then it kind of progressed to Moneyball, and really like how do we Moneyball our workforce? Right? We talk about how do we do that with our processes? How do we, make more money or how make it more efficient? But we don't do it enough here, right? And I think what it comes down to is really creating, well, we've created it, but a product that allows everyone in the company to be connected to one another, to see their skills, to see their certifications, to see what project they're on, right? And when we do that, then we can get into, hey, can we do trades? Can we borrow, right? Because what ends up happening is you're moving away from a culture of hoarding your team and your resources because you're worried you're going to have a gap in your team, so you're not gonna be able to complete a project. But when you have that visibility and you can do trades or you can ask to borrow and you have suggestions on who can potentially step up or fill in that gap, you're a lot more comfortable in sharing those resources. So, and then it allows you to run it like this, right? That's
Mhm.
kind of where we're coming from on this perspective.
And I see that kind of as well too. I mean, a common, let's see, like misconception or a common, I want to say, argument that a lot of people have is like, hey, I've been with this company for 10 years, but I'm not getting promoted. There's that internal mobility as well too. So probably doing a lot of hiring from outside, maybe people that live across the country coming in. You have skills, you have resources, especially with a foreman or a superintendent who's worked for 10 years for the same company, is aware of all your policies, has all their certifications, and knows the workflows for the company and knows the area as well too. I mean, that's where like things like eSUB, a cloud platform where everybody's connected and everybody's involved, is really going to be important, because think of it kind of like you're able to put your artwork out there. You're able to show your office managers, your office engineers, your project managers what you can do and showcase your hard work. Hey, you took a couple of great pictures here. You might be doing really good for your change order exhibits you need to send out. That's all going to bring in a lot of extra revenue. So, the examples that I have here, I mean, you have a particular foreman. I mean, I think we all know that sometimes it's very difficult for get your foreman to get your daily reports in on a daily basis and completely fill them out. So, hey, you've got that one foreman that is just filling out those daily reports, creating those field notes, making sure they're in tune with all of that project documentation, your RFIs and submittals. This right here is just a living document to say, hey, this guy has it. Let's get him into some kind of a superintendent training program. Same goes for maybe those project manager or the superintendents who are looking to level up as well too. Taking the lead on the change orders. I mean, these superintendents have such a wealth of knowledge. Someone that's just entering the industry, maybe even went to university or college as an engineer, I for sure learned a lot from superintendents just working alongside them. But this foreman might be, or the superintendent might be winning 5-6% margins, for example, on these change orders for the project. And this is a project that I actually did at Universal. We had some very, very strong superintendents that I want to say the project that I worked on was our top margin dollar project in the whole history of the company. So it's like, showcase your work, showcase what you can do. And at that point, get that superintendent into some kind of a project management training, share that wealth out. So it really is going to apply, and it's going to be the best to employ those different types of technology and make sure there's that visibility as well as that communication.
For sure. And then nobody feels overlooked. They don't feel like the company's always going external, and they feel like there's a career path, right? So
Mhm.
they're not going to go look for those opportunities, and you don't have to train new people. You don't have to spend hiring money. And if you're promoting, you're now hiring somebody at an entry level versus hiring somebody at a PM or superintendent level. Like, how much money are you saving there? Like,
Good point. But it's also kind of going back to a couple of topics that we talked about. The scalability is too. You have to make sure that it's scalable, right? Because I mean, you can only have so many, I want to say, annual barbecues, like where the whole company gets together. So it's like, all right, well, I really want to get to know these superintendents. I want to get to know who's working on what as well. Just that once annual barbecue isn't really going to cut it.
yeah, exactly. I think we
So
talked a little bit about this one.
we did
Yeah.
actually, yeah. Sharing that talent. I mean, we've got the example, and I want to say maybe on like the sub trades, it probably doesn't occur that often because
No.
when you're working in the sub trades, maybe your MEP, your HVAC, your plumbing, smaller family-owned businesses, smaller outfits, not necessarily everyone, but you're not going to be doing a lot of that sharing. However, it's the visibility that's still going to be very important there. But let's just say internally, when I'm saying here, you might need a certified welder on a project that might be across town kind of thing. Let's say he's super busy with that particular project in welding. Um, your company, you maybe have 50 to 100 people. A new project manager, new project engineer just started, isn't really aware of the workforce yet, doesn't really know everyone in the company yet. What's kind of the option there, Maria?
Um, I think there's different ways to look at it, right? Like if you don't know anybody, then I don't know. I kind of want to go back to the whole thing of like, even with the younger generations when they're coming in, right? Like everybody's online, like they're expecting to find everything online, right? So I think one of the things that you want to be considering is what technology are you implementing that's going to also attract younger generations coming into your workforce and being a part of your workforce, right? For them, they want to be able to find everything online. They want to see who they're talking to. They want to be able to connect that way. So I
Mhm.
think that's one way to look at it, right? Like in terms of, one welding company sharing with another welding company, I would love that in the future. I think there's going to be lots of opportunities for that to happen, especially, as the projects get bigger and the resort and, talent gets smaller. But I think it's just we also have to adapt on how we consume technology, how do we communicate online, and to bring that into our companies because we do want to promote an industry that is progressive, right? Which I think is a
Mhm.
big a block for a lot of people entering the space.
And one particular type of welding that I can really think, underwater welding, very high demand, especially. I mean, that's very hard to come by. You'll pay top dollar for them, but it's like, well, how do I find an underwater welder if I, outside of? Um, word of mouth kind of thing.
Yeah.
So then when we've got the boots on the ground, let's say we've got that welder on that other project, we're saved, we're not gonna be paying a lot of expensive liquidated damages. There's no more delays. I would say at that point, that's really where technology also helps to keep the team aligned, insight to other projects. So let's say you get that welder from one project within the company still too, one project to another project. That welder is going to be able to open up something like eSUB and be like, okay, here are the plans. Here are all the shop drawings. I see that they are approved. Here's all the general progress of the day. Here's some pictures already, so that they can already familiarize themselves with that particular project on an app or on the web in a software that they are already using on their other project. So they're already familiar with it. That means that they can get right on the project, maybe ask a couple questions, review the specific safety for that project itself. But I think that's going to be important as well too. As soon as you get traded over, is knowing what you got to do.
Yeah, exactly. I think the other biggest challenge in the industry, especially in the subcontractor space, is that you're there for a portion of the project and then you get moved, right? So a lot of companies in a subcontractor space see turnover and very high turnover because your employees don't actually have visibility into upcoming projects. So with SiloN, you can also search what is upcoming, right? So you can ask questions about the product and everything like that. So I think it's really critical to have that sort of visibility for projects and for people in the products that you're purchasing.
Right, right. Now, with all of that, I mean, we've gone through a couple of different ideas. When do you think is the best time to really implement some kind of technology like this?
I think that first moment where you go, oh, I should have done that, or I forgot about
Oh,
that, right? Like, I think when you have that first moment of like, I missed something or I missed that opportunity, you should be looking at it. I don't know if you need to implement something with 5 people potentially, but I think as you grow at 5 people, you should be looking at what are some of the challenges that I'm going to be facing and start exploring softwares and having conversations, right? Because by the time that you get into those inefficiencies, now you're in panic mode. So sometimes you'll just buy whatever it is that you want to buy versus something that's going to solve your problem. So to me, you should always be thinking about it. And as soon as it goes, oh, I missed it, then really, start doing your
so
research.
listen to your gut, right?
Yeah.
It's when you're still growing. It's not when you made it, when when you've got your $1 million house out there somewhere and
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
fancy sports car. It's when you're still growing, so you can grow into it.
And I think it'll
Um,
gives you more time. Like it's a better process and it builds that culture of like, we talked about technology and technology adaptation versus, when you get to the 50 employees and nobody wants to use it because they're so accustomed to what they're doing and they're so swamped, they're like, I don't want to learn another new thing. So I think it's really important as
yeah,
you
there's that disengagement between the
yeah.
field and the office at that point. Everyone's just really overwhelmed, just running around with,
Mm.
like chickens with their heads cut off at that point, just unscalable.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that key takeaway there really is we got to make sure that the technology that you choose to employ, both for your workforce as well as for project management, I mean, it's got to fit your business, not the other way around.
Yeah, I think
So
that's really important.
you got to do that research, make sure that you're finding exactly what you're looking for. I mean, good example for that is really going to be, I would say, let's say you had an MEP contract, or I'm sorry, not a plumbing contractor. And I always like to say, okay, well, hey, we're 5 employees. We just started out maybe a couple of months ago. We want to use eSUB or we want to use some other platform for our project management. And then say, hey, I've heard really good things about X, but let's say this particular, well, not Twitter or anything like that, but this company, I've heard really good things about this PM software company, but a lot of their forms, it's a lot like really like plumbing related. You might have things on there, it's like HVAC related. How's that? That's not really going to benefit you at all really well. You're just kind of running around looking for the first thing that might have the lowest dollar, the lowest yearly rate for the most users that you have. But you're then just going to start finding that, oh, this really isn't going to work for me. A lot of the fields, a lot of the reports, a lot of the QC reports and test data that are available isn't going to work.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's important to ask for a trial. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And all that it comes down to money as well too. So you're not going to spend $20,000 on a custom software that caters to plumbing trades if you're an HVAC contractor.
Mhm.
So you got to make sure that the right tools for the documentation to really effectively communicate, like we talked before, is just remembering that communication is key. Visibility is key as well too.
Mhm. And I think you should always also be asking your teams, right? Like I don't think any technology decisions should really be made in a silo or as an individual. I think it's really important to talk to your team about the problem you're trying to solve, or have them try out different softwares, to make sure that it's a match. Because they're the
And I
ones who
think
are
that's
gonna be using it.
exactly that. I think that's most important as well too. Get your foreman on board, get your superintendents on board, some individuals from your project team, create like an implementation, a rollout team, test the software and come up with your workflows. Use those resources that you have at, say, SiloIn or eSUB as well too, to help you come up with those workflows. That's why we're there. And with that, I mean, really, again, start small, focus on your visibility, and then scale smart is really going to be those final thoughts there. Got to make sure that all that technology is working for you and, of course, not against you, because it's just going to be very inefficient in the end.
I couldn't have said it better.
It was right there on the screen in front of me. All right, guys. Well, I
Awesome.
think that is all that we've got today. Go ahead, Danielle.
Yeah, I was just gonna jump in and say we are in the five final minutes, so just want to take this time and keep it open for some Q&A. So feel free to go ahead if you guys do have any questions for either presenter. Feel free to go ahead and put it in the Q&A function now, and we'll start to answer some of those.
Don't be shy.
You'd almost think it's a Monday. It seems like we have a little bit of a quiet day, but we'll go ahead and give it another minute just in case some people are typing.
It is the middle of the week. It is Wednesday.
Feels like
Almost
Monday.
there. It does. It does.
It's a lot to process.
Oh, there. Yeah. We had a lot of good examples, though, I thought. I mean, just really good chatter back and forth on that.
I just find it so important to like have all this communication up front, and to have all the teams involved right from the start in this process, because otherwise it's just there's a lot of not like lack of adaptation, but just not even a desire to engage in those conversations later on. So the earlier,
It's
like,
like, oh, another thing I have to do
yeah,
now. Yeah.
yeah. So it's really important to talk about communication all the time.
And even more so, yeah, when you've got people in the field and you got people in the office. I mean, that project might be 20 miles away from your office kind of thing. So
Yeah.
that's where that communication, other than, text messages back and forth and emails and phone calls. I mean, we probably all know that one foreman or superintendent that is on their phone 24/7 anytime. I've known plenty of them, but there's got to be a more effective way of doing that, because you're on the phone, you're not doing your work, you're not leading your team, you're not leading your crew. There's much more effective ways of doing that.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I used to be considered an office person, but every time I got a chance to go to site, like I would go, and I obviously encourage anybody who's listening that's in the office and not on site to go. Like, there's nothing cooler than watching things get built. Like, one day you go and it's a green field, the next day it's like a hospital. It's incredible. Like, it's so
Mhm.
interesting.
I spent as much time as I could out in the field.
Yeah.
Yeah, develop that rapport as well too.
Well, we are at time. Just want to say thank you to both of our presenters today, and thank you guys for joining us, whether it was for your morning coffee or your lunch hour. Really appreciate it, everyone. Bye.
I
I
thank you.
thank you very much.